Hey guys, welcome to another live show, another live She Knows Arsenal. Make sure you guys are liking the video and subscribing to the channel on your way in, and also getting into the chat, letting me know what you guys are thinking and feeling about this most recent Arsenal transfer chat. No real news, today. It's more of just a general chat about where we are, what's to come, and getting a little temperature check on how you guys are enjoying your Berta era so far. I, for one, am enjoying Berta era. I'm not going to lie. I'm living my best life. He's introducing me to a vibe that I hope he can maintain. But yeah, I hope you guys are well. Hope you guys are ready for the show. I told you guys to let me know from the poll if you guys are getting goosebumps or not. So yeah, we're going to do it. I am so tired because I weirdly I wake up in weird times during the transfer window, and I woke up at 1 a.m. If you guys don't know, I live in LA. So I woke up at 1 a.m. and I was like, if I look at my phone and things are happening, I'm not gonna be able to go to sleep. And that's essentially what happened. I saw so many different things happening. I'm like, oh shit, Gyokeres is in London. Oh shit. Mosquera is here we go. Oh shit, da da da, So I was like, oh, I'm so excited. I'm looking at all the content. I'm on Twitter. And then I was like, you are gonna be so messed up the rest of the day. And so I took a little nap and now I'm up, but I don't feel awake. So yeah, but I'm here and I'm excited to chit chat. Guys, potentially 6 signings before preseason even begins. Going on our Asia tour, literally 6 signings in, most likely. Gyokeres, final details being done with Sporting on the add-ons. Also, Mosquera on his way to London to do his medical. And Nani, his medical was done today. There was actual footage of him getting his medical done or walking to get his medical done. And Eze, is still on the cards. Fabrizio Romano, Ben Jacobs, everybody is saying that Arsenal are still are still moving forward with that. So yeah, it's looking crazy actually, because I know that some people are like, well, shit doesn't matter yet because we haven't gotten before you go negative Nelly. Let's just talk about at least getting stuff done. At the very least. Do you guys remember what last summer was? It was a nightmare. It was catastrophic. Even deals that should not have been taking that long took forever. Remember Calafiori took 2 months and so did Marino. So not necessarily around the whole oh, well, we still need a left wing and we still need this and that. But just in general, he is moving fast. And I feel and he's moving efficiently, because we'll get into the actual fees attached with some of these players, which is actually to me the most impressive. But it gives me more hope that the rest of the window with the bigger kind of signings of Eze and maybe a left wing could actually get done, So maybe a blessing in disguise in a way that Edu has left, because now it forced Arsenal to go outside their comfort zone and hire a sporting director that has that experience. And hopefully the organization in general can see what life is like when you actually have people that know what they're doing, have had that type of experience and those types of connections, and how different your life is when you actually have that, because I feel like I am in a window that I see other teams having, I see Liverpool having, I see Man City having. And so I'm like, oh shit, we're really about that shit. Berta is really on it, So, and the fact that he's able to get these deals done with such efficiency, and then also with the fee as well, definitely makes me think that he's going to be able to get other things done. 55 million pound base fee for Gyokeres is not only good for this window, but it's good for future windows because it's not prohibitive if we want to go out there and buy another striker. I hear people saying like, "Oh, well, we brought in Gyokeres for 70 million, so we're not gonna." It's not 70 million; it's 55 million fixed. That means that's less than what we paid for Kai Havertz fixed, by the way. It's a fee that, along with the wages, because I do think he's going to get decent wages, but it doesn't stop you from once you get into like 70, 80, 90 millions, that's when you start to get into this has to be the person for the foreseeable, like Declan. You spend that amount of money on a Declan, he is pre-prime, he can play multiple positions, he's just a unit, like, all those types of things, right? And so we haven't done that with Gyokeres. The fee very much so looks like or represents a player that wasn't our first choice and probably is not to the T perfect, but we're going to get good value out of this player, but also in the next couple of windows, we'll still be able to go out there and buy our younger striker. I don't know why people are not clocking. Like, are you not clocking to, is not clocking to you that he's standing on business? Like, Jesus is out the door. So we're going to need to go out there and get another striker sooner rather than later, probably in the next window. Havertz is also somebody that should and could be moved on. So it's not prohibitive. 55 million pound base fee is very good. And everything else, we only have to pay if he does well. And if he does well, you're going to be happy to pay Sporting that money. So I'm like, that is a really, really good fee when we start, because originally I know people were like, well, if we pay 80 million for Gyokeres, we're not paying 80 million for Gyokeres. Not even with, like, you know what I mean? Like, it's so good, right? Then with Mosquera, 15 million pounds? Hello? Who's that? A serious man in the building. That's crazy. 15 million pounds for an up and coming kind of like prospect that's going to be able to preserve the legs of William Saliba and Gabriel Magalhaes. That's such good business. That's the type of business, if anybody else does it, we're like, why aren't we doing that? Right? We didn't go out there and overspend on like a Gahey who's going to cost like 30, 40 million or whatever. We went out there and got somebody that's good value for money. Super smart signing, good fee. That also makes me feel like whatever we paid up front to Chelsea for Madueke is probably peanuts, so that we can go out there and do other things. And so, no, it's not, the big signings that people are really waiting for with, potentially left wing and Eze, but he's setting us up, I feel like, to be able to still get those deals done if we're able to, move a player on here and there. And I do believe that he is going to be able to move those players on. The Arsenal perspective says, so Varandas had to bend the knee and grant Arsenal a cheaper price. I mean, we didn't come up. I feel like that's what people are like, oh, so we just bent over. No, we didn't actually bend over. We gave what we were going to give, and it was up to, Gyokeres' agent to actually give up his portion of, the agent fee in order to, allow more money to be given to Sporting, right? So we actually didn't do shit. We did our part. I told y'all. I was like, we did our part. I don't know why people are acting like Arsenal are being cheap. We're not being cheap. We did our part. We came up. That's how negotiations happen. I come a little bit to you. You come a little bit to me. Sporting weren't willing to come to anybody. So in order to facilitate that deal, Gyokeres' agent actually made it happen, which I think is really admirable, but also, like, no offense to him, but he kind of got his client into that mess to begin with, so I feel like he's like, okay, let me fix it, and that's fine. As long as you fix your mistake, it's cool, so yeah, listen, you can't tell me shit right now. I'm relaxed going into, those games in Asia where we're going to play AC Milan, Newcastle, AC Milan, Newcastle, and Spurs. Again, whoever thought it was a good idea to play rivals in preseason, you will perish. You will perish. Count your days. What a terrible idea. We should be playing Singaporean all-stars. You know, that's who we should be playing. Random teams from the J League. But you got us out here playing rivals. That first tackle, that first Joel Linton tackle or elbow in somebody's face, I'm going to be catching the first flight to Asia to slap somebody across the face. But anyways, that's neither here nor there. But we will have 6 players, hopefully, on the flight. That is so good. Then Berta can just figure out the rest. And we already knew that some of these more like, these like, especially like left wing is probably going to end up taking a little bit longer, so we already kind of knew that. But now, like, I think, do you guys feel not a little bit more relaxed? I feel like that's what I'm trying to get at. Do you feel a little bit more relaxed, not only because we're getting players to the door, but you're being shown by Berta that he knows what he's doing? I feel like that's what I'm trying to get at. Like, don't you feel a little bit more chill? Because I do for sure. Super Kai says the more that comes out about how much we are paying up front with all of our signings does give me more hope about getting both Eze and Rodrygo, though I do think Rodrygo will take a sale or two. I think the goosebumps come truly after not just all of the signings we need, still need Eze sorted ASAP, but also if we see considerable actual improvement on the pitch preseason opening. But you know what? I understand that. I understand that. I get what you're saying in terms of, you want to see it translated onto the pitch, and of course I want to see it onto the pitch. I see this Ekitike to Newcastle. I know people are like making assumptions that this means that Isak is going somewhere, but I think it might just be a sign of intention from Newcastle that they're serious side. Like they want to upgrade on Wilson and bring in somebody that, can play with Isak or instead of Isak. To me, until I see somebody actually making moves, it does kind of just look like Newcastle are stockpiling on these, creative, kind of tall center forwards, and that's good on them. Let's see. I think the last 2 seasons were mostly affected by, I don't see the rest of this. I'm waiting for the rest of your chat to come through. I'm definitely more relaxed for finally making moves. Joel Linton is just fast and furious favela thug that somehow managed to get into the football scene. I mean, I'm telling you, it's just gonna be so annoying watching them being desperate, to show us. It's like, enough. You've shown us enough. You're a bogey team. Relax. Like, we get it. You take points off of us every year. I get it. This says, I wanted the striker to be in before preseason, and we have essentially 90% of our signings in. That's simply amazing. Yeah, so far he's been great with him getting Gyokeres over the line. If he gets Eze, then Berta is tier 1. My mind was always like, I got to let him operate and see. Yeah, defo chill at the moment. Skill says Berta is cooking. Isak won't leave Newcastle. Why would they want to sell their best striker to a rival? I don't actually think that Isak is going anywhere. I think like Arsenal fans are so, well, if somebody's coming in, then that means that surely somebody's leaving. The exact same thing happened when PSG were bringing in Kvaratskhelia, and they were like, well, surely Barcola leaves. He's signing a new deal. Good teams, top teams that want to compete on all 4 fronts have strength and depth, especially in attacking areas. So we're trying to get up to that level, and we're slowly trying to get there. We're trying to climb up that ladder, but we see somebody else showing intention, and our first thought process, because of how we operate, is it must be one in, one out. I just don't think Newcastle are under any pressure to sell Isak, even if he's not going to agitate like Gyokeres did or go on strike. So they're not under any pressure to let him go. I just feel like they're being a big team and doing what big teams do. I just don't necessarily see every single situation as when you stockpile in attacking positions, somebody must be going. That's like an us mentality. You know what I mean? Eze will make this window a 9 out of 10. Berta is doing really good so far. Mafia Boss says, what is your transfer rating at the moment? I think my transfer rating at the moment is probably about a 7. I think, with definitely room to grow with the Eze signing and hopefully even a left wing. I still think we need a left wing. I think even with Eze, I will think that this window is probably more of like a 9. If they want to make it a 10 out of 10, they bring in that left wing as well. But we're, halfway through July and we're talking about getting those final pieces done. And to be honest, like that's more exciting than, what it's been like in the past. In the past, it's been feeling like every single signing has to take a million years, So yeah, Woody says, evening, Jess. I don't think Rodrygo joins us or in fact leaves Madrid. We do need Eze though, for sure. We definitely need Eze for sure. Let's see. Is somebody saying that the sound is gone? Let me know if it is. I don't think it is. Oh, Abla says it's just me. Okay. Owen says if Berta ends with getting Saliba to sign after Eze and Rodrygo, that's an 11 out of 10 window. Yep. We need to get that, Saliba re-signing for sure. So yeah, let's also kind of talk about what Ben Jacobs has just said. Arsenal still hold a genuine interest in Rodrygo, Anthony Gordon, and Rafael Leao, but a move for any of the left-hand sided trio will require either Leandro Trossard or Martinelli to depart. And listen, we're still in the market for a left wing, baby. I think, maybe moving on like a Reece Nelson or using him as a make weight for Eze will be enough for us to get that deal done. Hopefully they'll be willing to work with us. It's like, don't hold him hostage. He wants to go, so we're willing to work with you, work with us. We'll give you a couple little pieces on the side to make sure that the deal gets done. But at the beginning of the window, you said, Crystal Palace, you said that you were willing to take them installments. So that's what I'm trying to see that. I'm trying to see those installments. But, I don't think Eze is about Martinelli or Trossard. Martinelli and Trossard are, more about the left wing coming in. And so I like this because I always kind of felt like, well, if you get rid of somebody and you make money on it or you bring money in, why can't you just replace, if that makes sense. And we could never do that with Edu because it always felt like he couldn't walk and chew gum at the same time. He couldn't do multiple things at a time. And I'm just like, well, if you get rid of something, can't you just replace it like in the same window? So yeah, I think we're definitely still in the mode of being able to maybe get a left wing. And, if my Trossi baby, if he has to sacrifice himself for us to get somebody, then so be it. Bayern are interested in Trossard, and I think they'd be interested in taking him because he's a little bit cheaper than the other players that they've been looking at. I don't think Bayern maybe don't have the funds to go out there and really get like a Luis Diaz done or, whatever else they were they were looking at Leao as well. They're looking at Nico Williams. So maybe they may be priced out of those deals. I don't even know if they would have the money for Martinelli, but Trossard could be like a cut price deal for them. And so we're like ready just in case that happens. And I also saw something from Graham Bailey earlier that Trossard has already told Arsenal that, he's looking at other options to try to move. And if I was him, that's exactly what I'd be trying to do. I'm looking at the writing on the wall. They're bringing in Eze, they brought in the striker, Martinelli's still here. If, it's looking like I'm not going to get as much playing time as I did in past seasons. I'm 30. And so I need to either get the bag in Saudi or I need to go somewhere where I'm going to get more money. And so, yeah, there's still so much that could be done at the end of the window. And it's interesting seeing that Leao's pop back on this list. I wonder if that's, because they put the price down a little bit. I know I saw maybe a couple weeks ago that they were willing to take 60 million. And so you have 60 million potentially for Leao. You have a big package that you would need to be able to put out for Rodrygo. And then you have Anthony Gordon, a player that I just hope we just act like we can't see, like Sandra Bullock, maybe we get both Rodrygo and Eze that was Visionary said, when did Ben say that? He said that like an hour ago. Yeah, he said that like an hour ago. Basically like our next kind of like thing that we're going after is like, we're focusing on formalizing the or finalizing Victor Gyokeres, and then the next thing is formalizing and finding an attacking midfield. So that's where Eze comes in. Eze talks will continue this week with Arsenal set to make a formal approach to Crystal Palace. And then after that, then depending on if we can get a sale in, we could bring in a left wing, you know. Let's really get into it. I'm loving that. We need to get a left wing in for sure. That 100% needs to happen. Vic says we are getting Rodrygo and Eze both shirts in the cart the moment Trossard gets sold. I'm gonna click the purchase button. Let me ask you guys this question, because I've been actually debating my friend on this for the last couple of weeks, but who should get the 10 if we are going to get Rodrygo and Eze? Who's getting 10? Who's getting 10? Literally. Like, I keep telling her, I'm like, Eze has to get the 10. It's a slam dunk. It is a slam dunk. Marketing wise, it has to be Eze. Eze 10. I mean, I'm putting that shit in the bag instantly. Add to cart, purchase. Oh, it's $200. I can't see. Like it's fine. Eze 10 makes so much sense to me. But then if you add Rodrygo, wouldn't he maybe want the 10? 19? Because the only way that this works is 11 or 19 would be available as well. People have to think about that too. The only way that the left winger comes in is if 19 or 11 becomes available, because we sell one of Trossard or Martinelli. So that number is also available. That's my favorite number. I know it's not like a traditional number of like, 11, 9, 7. Those are the numbers that you want, 10. But personally, 19, it means something to me. It means something to me. It means something to me. So 19 would be available potentially as a 10. Gyokeres, I don't know what he's about to do. Listen, I have my thoughts on the 14 and who that should go to. We're not going to go there. If you know, you know. But I would prefer nobody touch that 14 if we can make sure. Now, maybe also, what is Madueke about to do? Is he about to foil our plans and try to get a big number, like a big boy number? Or are you going to take 30? Like you should. Like take 30 or 20. Like relax. So there's quite a few things like, that need to get sorted. But I really do think Eze 10 makes the most sense. Because I'm buying that instantly. That's a instant sold out. They can't even press any more shirts at all. But obviously, you want to be able to offer a player of Rodrygo's stature, even Leao to a certain extent, a really good number, because they're the superstars, So yeah, there's stuff there. Now, if Leao came, his asses would go straight in there and ask for the 14. I know he would. I don't even know him like that, but I know him. That's what he would do. Noni better take 100. We'd 100% have to sell one of Trossard or Martinelli so Rodrygo can get either of their numbers. Eze gets 10. Leave that 14, not even for Gyokeres. Madueke, get some random big number. Who has 17? Zinni has 17. That's the thing, is if we had already gotten rid of Zinni, then I would imagine that that's a perfect scenario for Gyokeres, because he's worn 17 in the past, but we're a little low on good numbers, and I want Gyokeres to get a good number, because I figure at some point he'll get the 9. He just won't get it now, but I'd like for him to get a decent number. I don't want my number 9 running around with 30 on his back. I know that's probably what Sesko would have done, but we were talking about Glock 9 here, and we want him to have a good number. Noni, Henri 14. Don't piss me off. Rodrygo should get 11. Hopefully Martinelli gives it up or stick with his number, winger number. Eze is a number 10. That's what I'm saying. Saka should wear the 14. Would you guys be okay with Saka switching over to 14 so that you can give Rodrygo the 7? I feel like I would be just about okay with Saka wearing the 14 because I know he would take good care of it. I just don't think he'd switch. The 7 is super coveted. That is the winger number that you want, 7 or 11, so yeah. Whoever said no need 14 needs a timeout. 9, not a good Arsenal number. You mean in terms of like people performing with that number, if that's what you mean. Marco says R10, already pre-ordered it. That's why I was so mad about the Nani deal. Fair enough. 7 is official. He should just keep that. Jess Gyokeres 10 or 14. Give Nani the 14. Rio said we should back him. Glock 9 sounds sweet. T-shirt worthy. It's written in the stars, man. Saka 14, so Rodrygo gets 7 is just about fine. That's just about okay, but I don't even think, Saka, if you turned up and you're like, hey, will you switch to 14? If I was him, my face would be so scrunched up. I'd be like, what? So yeah, I'd be like, what do you mean by that? Like, why am I getting called in and asked about my number? Let's see. Arsenal are set to approach Crystal Palace to discuss a deal for Eze. Let's fucking go. Approach. Let's go. Like, I'm ready to get that one done. Period. Marco says Gyokeres at 19, Rodrygo at 10, Eze at 14. Leao or Rodrygo, I already know who you like the most. Then why are you asking? Why are you asking? If you already know the answer to the question, why are you asking? Like if you've been on channel, I want Rodrygo. That's the player. That's it. Let's add more Brazilian Jogo Bonito, Let's allow this young man to become a star at Arsenal, write his own story in his preferred position. That's what I want to see. Leao is also a very good player. He's just lazy, and I do not see him working off the ball. And although I said that we need to be less about off the ball workhorse and more about what we do on the ball, now we're going a little bit too far with Leao. We're talking about not tracking back at all, So listen, I really like Rodrygo, and I feel like he's the one for us. But Leao being on the list lets me know that I feel like Arsenal maybe felt like their options were a little bit limited, and wanted to maybe test the waters again with somebody else that maybe the fee is a little bit lower now. I think Leao would be over the moon to come to Arsenal. Obviously, a lot of Arsenal fans would be over the moon for Leao to come to Arsenal. I just don't know if he's going to work for Arteta, if you know what I mean. But maybe he'll change. I don't know. I think we don't have the finances to buy both Rodrygo and Eze unless we sell a couple of players. Of course, I think this is all dependent on Trossard or Martinelli going. But I do think that, they're already drip feeding that Trossard wants a move. I know they said early on that his change of agent didn't have anything to do with him wanting to switch teams, but it came out today that he wants to move teams, or he's searching for a solution. And so that would open up the opportunity to bring in a left wing. So I think with Berta, hopefully what we're going to see is that moving players away, moving players on is not going to be such a hard thing to do with him, so that we can start bringing players in and like get one out and move one in. Under Edu, it was like, if we need to sell to buy, it's done. Like it was over. If you heard sell to buy, we're cooked, but I think he's left some wiggle room here to be able to maneuver with these smaller fees that he's been getting up front for Gyokeres and for Mosquera, small little snip for Kepa and Norgard. And then also, doing the installments for Zubamendi helps us instead of having to pay the whole entire release clause. I'm sure we're paying $5, up front for Nani. And so I think that he's maneuvering to make sure that we have some room, but we do need to move people out, not just because of money, but also because of numbers. We are starting to, get close to, going beyond that 25 man threshold, so some people are going to have to go. I think Sambi, like obviously Sambi and Fabio. Hey, Beckham, come back here. Come back here. Come here. Come on. Give me that. Caught red-handed. And see, he's been working on it as well. He's already been working on it. Apologize to the people. But yeah, I think with somebody like Berta, it shouldn't be as hard to move the people on. And being able to move people in, he will have planned for this, so yeah. We are below the 25-man squad. Homegrown is the problem. Yellow card. Beckham. This dude. I mean, like Beckham is so precocious. Like he's somebody that like he's so mild-mannered, but if he sees something like this just around, he's gonna grab it and go tear it up, and you'll have a million pieces to pick up outside. Yeah, I'm telling your business. Yeah, I'm telling your business. But he's a good boy. Lakanga, Nelson, Vieira, Zinni, and Trossard. Come here. Now you're looking sad. Yeah, those all could be sold. Not quite sure what's going to happen with Lakanga and Vieira. I'm hoping that he can get actual fees and we don't have to do another loan for either one of them. But Zinni, Trossard, I'm expecting to go. I'm not sure what's going to happen with Kiwior, just because that feels like a lot of work to have to do, because I think you would have to replace him. If you're getting rid of Zinni and him, you're going to have to replace. That feels like a lot of more work to do. Madueke is not homegrown, so Martinelli position is safe. How do we line up next season if we get all of these done plus Eze? I don't know, Caleb. I just feel like we have options, but we could definitely, look at a little lineup and put people in the places for sure. Samson says, Arsenal need to sign your dog to compete with Win. Are you competitive? Just a little bit. I think Win would be sick of you. I can't even lie. He doesn't know no means no. When he plays with other dogs, he's just all in their faces and stuff like that. I think Win would be sick of him. That dopamine hit when we sell all the fringe players and get our targets will be like no other. We don't have homegrown problem for this season. Arsenal need to sign your dog. Okay, I read that one. Brandon says we need to keep Kiwi. I just think it makes things more simple. We don't have to, if you get rid of both Zinni and Kiwior, you're going to have to bring someone in unless they have somebody ready to just, get through the door. It does feel like a little bit of like an extra thing. And I know Berta can do like a lot. I know that he's been pretty efficient, but it just feels like kind of a lot. Then bringing in another defender, trying to get left wing, trying to get Eze, it feels like a lot. So maybe we just keep him, so I'm kind of okay with that. I don't really feel like we need to do anything else. I know Southmo talks about Hato. Maybe if Hato was, I think he's sitting around kind of waiting for a move. Early on in the window, people were talking about bringing him in. So let's see what happens. Hato, if we let Kiwi go, but I would still like to keep Kiwi. Bulgarian says, is it true that little dogs are more aggressive? I think so. I think they are more aggressive. But this dog is not aggressive at all. He's more like loving, and maybe too loving. Like he wants to get all in your face and like all this kind of stuff, but not like aggressive, like yippy or barky. Now, Ben's is a little bit more Chihuahua-like in that way, where he likes to bark, but he's pretty harmless. But my best friend has 2 big pit mixes, and they're a lot more chill than maybe my dogs are. So I do think it's kind of true. My mom has a Maltese and she is like a princess. Like she's a little bit more like, so yeah, I think so. I think big dogs are pretty chill. They have like those gentle giant type of of personalities. Keep Kiwior, bring in Eze in the window as a 10 out of 10. Kala would move as a backup left center mid, and Hato would probably come in, meaning MLS to midfield. Seeing how much Kiwior improved over the last season, my prediction is that he gets even better, and the team chemistry is already there. Keep him. Who can be an instant buddy with Gyokeres? Big Gabby. Yeah, probably Big Gabby. I could see that. Probably Declan too, because I just feel like Declan is like very personable and like very, social. So he'll probably be excited. And yeah. What's going on with Vini? Vini Jr.'s contract renewal is now blocked. There is zero movement to the point that no announcement is expected this entire summer. His contract ends in 2027. What's going on here? Huh? Wouldn't that be a good thing for Rodrygo? Feeling like eventually... No, not necessarily. I don't know what's going on with that. That sounds insane to me. Surely he's probably asking for a shit ton of money or something. Let's see. White, they played together at Brighton. Good point. Arsenal can negotiate to sell Kiwior on a low fee by convincing him to stay one more season. I need a Rodrygo left wing man. People got no idea what I'll do to make that happen. I don't know if I want to know what you're willing to do, Triple C, but I'll believe that you're willing to do a lot of things, but don't give me any visuals, don't give me any, examples, or don't go any further. Mosquera would be a replacement for Kiwior. Kind of, I think, maybe, but I think he's more like, because remember, we lost Tommy as well. So I actually don't think, in terms of what position he'll play, yes, but in terms of the body he's replacing, he's actually replacing Tommy. Tommy, yeah. So I still feel like, because when I look at it, like I'm looking at it just from like okay, you have MLS, like your starter would be like MLS, Timber, Saliba, and Gabriel. Right now, we would have Mosquera, White, Kiwior, and Kala as backups. That feels safe. If you take one of those away, I feel so much less safe, especially since one of the people that you're leaving there is somebody that's had a very suspect injury record. I do think if you get rid of Kiwi, you're going to have to bring somebody in, because with Mosquera already, like if Mosquera is not there, you only have two backups, so numbers wise and safety wise and making sure we're not in like a oh shit situation, I do think you need to replace and bring in one more once you get rid of Zinni and if you get rid of Kiwi. I miss Tommy. Saliba will need a new best friend at the club. I know. Tommy is such a what if, isn't he? Arsenal FT is the worst thing to happen to football. Man are complaining about Ekatike bid because they feel Gyokeres is inferior. I hate our fan base. I haven't thought about anything else that's happened with anybody, another team, all today. I'll be honest with you. I just feel when we're doing what we need to do, I'm so much less invested in what everybody else is doing, because I feel like if Arsenal are serious, regardless of what other people are doing, we can be successful. But it's like the pocket watching and the constant, looking at the grass is greener with other people. It's like, focus on ourselves. It's not like we're not moving. It's not like our window is dead or anything like that. I don't really get it, but that's how some people just operate. They just cannot look at what we're doing. They're just looking at what everybody else is doing. And then because Gyokeres is such a divisive person or signing, I think some people are just so heavily focused on like, but we could have got. I'm sorry, but like if you can't get excited about Gyokeres because he's not Isak or Big Isak either, that's too bad. I can't live that way. You and me, we live a completely different life. That's not how I operate. So if you're constantly looking at what other people are doing, you're never going to be excited about what you got going on. This man has moved heaven and earth for us. The least you can do is be excited about him for 2 minutes. Brian says, I'm against the Nani deal because I'm afraid it will limit us in getting a left wing. People underestimate how much that position is holding us back. Yeah, no, I get that. I think, you know, I would have preferred us to get that left wing done first. But if it's really just contingent on us letting, selling somebody, Bert probably feels confident that he can sell somebody and move them on. So I'm not too worried about it yet, but I do understand what you're saying. Shireen says, I can see him like slowing down. So let's see. I'm just trying not to talk too much until it goes back up. I know it's going to go back up in a second. But yeah, let's see who else. Shireen is saying, I don't think Rodrygo will happen. Just get Eze over the line, even if it takes till deadline day, along with Gyokeres. He is the most important signing we have to complete in this window. I mean, I don't think it's Eze or Rodrygo. I think they're making it pretty clear that Rodrygo, the left wings are separate to Eze. So I don't really think we need to worry about that, to be honest. It's like Eze is, we're trying to get into talks with Eze now. It doesn't have anything to do with, getting the left wing in, if that makes sense. Nani is competition for Saka. We're good back. I know it's kind of pixelated. It'll come back in a second. I don't know why it goes down and then it comes back up. So yeah. But as long as they're separate, I don't think we have anything to really worry about. Eze is definitely a name that we keep seeing and we're definitely going toward it, so yeah, but people are panicking about Newcastle, and I'm just like, yeah, but if we do what we're meant to do, why are you panicking? Why are you panicking about what other people are doing if we're doing what we need to be doing? That's just how I look at things, but I get that Newcastle will have a good team if they have Ekitike and Isak and blah, blah, blah. But our biggest problem and our biggest reason why we can't beat Newcastle or we struggle to beat them is because they have game changers at the top end of the pitch and we don't. They can create something out of nothing. We can't. We can't dribble through their block. So if you buy Eze and get a left wing, you got Gyokeres, why are we worried about what the fuck they got going on? I really am not worried about that. If Liverpool signs Isak, it's done league. I don't think they are. I'm pretty sure that like Newcastle want to keep both. Like they're wanting to get both. They're panicking because they think we'll sell Isak to Liverpool, which I don't think will happen this summer. I don't either. Sorry to repeat, but do we know Madueke confirmed wages yet? I don't think we do know, but what I was seeing was like 80,000 pounds a week, but that's like unconfirmed. So don't quote me on it. Isak isn't going anywhere. It's nonsense. I really don't think he's going anywhere. Like also you have to look at them, because I try to look and see what other people are doing just in terms of like just keeping up and I'm interested in seeing like, just in general, just being up to date on what people are doing. And Liverpool have failed to be able to sell Nunez. And so I think if they can't sell Nunez for a good fee, they won't have the money to be able to give 150 million to Newcastle for Isak if he was even available to be sold. I just don't even see Isak agitating, in a way that would make Newcastle feel like they have to sell. And also they're back in Champions League. And so they want to build a bigger squad. I just don't see a reason why they would be selling. It doesn't make sense to me. Liverpool have been linked with Mateta this morning, which would be a cheaper option to still bolster their center forward position. But without being able to sell Nunez, they might have to go a little bit smaller. So like, I don't really, if we got what we need to have, I'm pretty chill, but I know some people can only look at rivals and they're like, but they have blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, but we have good stuff too. So like, what are we upset by? Ekitike massively underperformed his XG. I'm not worried about the signing at all. He's an understudy to Isak at best. John says, I'm not bothered about any other team. I have seen a lot of team buy lots of good players during the window and still not perform well. Gunnar says, I really don't care about Isak. Always wanted Gyokeres ahead of him, but if he doesn't go to Liverpool, I know he will be a Gunner. Why, as Arsenal fans, are we worried so much about signing both Eze and Rodrygo? I remember we had a starting of 3 of Ethan, Marino, and Trossard in the Premier League. We should get both. Squad depth is key. I think you're saying like worried about getting one or the other. I think what it is that people are thinking that it is one or the other. I think that's more what it is. I think most of us, if we could choose, we would choose to get both, so I don't think people are actively choosing against getting both. I think that people don't believe we are going to get both, because it would feel that would be an insane window. I think even with Eze, that's an incredibly impressive window with a huge outlay of money. And so I think people are just finding it difficult to grasp onto like we could potentially get both, but I don't think people are choosing not to get both. You know what I mean? I also think people want to protect themselves. I think they want the left wing, but they want to have just kind of temper down their expectations ever so slightly, just in case we can't get both. And I kind of understand that. Southmost says we have to get used to Berta operating in a way where we can actually sign more than one player. Fee not feeling like you're not feeling the fee maybe for Rodrygo. Is that what you're saying? Maybe it's because since the Emirates era, we have been moving like a broke club and people are just finding it difficult that we can actually get both. That's what I'm saying. I think that's, what it kind of comes down to is it's just like I've never been here before. So of course we're not going to be able to get both. And I'm not saying 100% we are going to get both. I do think it's dependent on how much things end up costing. And then if we can actually sell, Trossard or Martinelli. But it's definitely, I'm saying like we were in a position where under Edu, if we ever heard sell to buy, those were if you heard those 3 words, you knew the window was done. It was just finished, but I don't feel that way with Berta, because he's introducing me to a vibe that I'm thinking he might just maintain, so yeah. Our wage structure has gotten better with the players who have left. Wage-wise, we can afford both. And I think if Nani's on decent, when I mean decent, I mean like not too inflated wages. Like I would anticipate out of everybody that's come in so far, the only players that are going to be on really good wages are the starters, which would be Gyokeres and Zubi, which makes sense. You've gotten rid of other players that were starters and they had high wages. They're, Eze is going to absorb those wages, or not Eze, sorry. Zubi is going to absorb those wages, but maybe it's still a little bit lower. So I think we're in a good place. You don't put Nani on 150,000 pounds a week, you put him on 80, that's how you sell better in the future. Because I'm sorry, Edu was just giving out wages like candy. He was just out of control, man. Sorry, I'm spamming again. I was saying, although the fee for Madueke is a bit mad, his wages are 50,000 pounds. That's half of what we paid for our last 2 Saka backups. I think I'm not really that worried about the Madueke thing in terms of how it's going to impact us from a wage structure perspective. So it's just a matter of how much we paid up front. Now we'll get to how he plays for us and all that kind of stuff. That's a whole different conversation. But in terms of how it's going to impact us in this window and the next windows, I'm not that worried about it, but let's see. Let's see. Can I just say Hand of Arsenal has been on point with these updates. Guess the identity of this person is a mystery. Nonetheless, I've appreciated the accuracy of the info reported. Same. I just don't think we can just call him in the know anymore. I said that before. Because in the know is kind of like a negative word for things, so yeah. And I'm seeing the, Ekatike thing as well, that 75 million. euros, which is significantly less than I think what they were expecting. But again, if you need to sell or you want to sell or whatever, and teams aren't coming in for your player, then you'll lessen your demands. He was always on the market, and I think originally they had started off with 80 to 100 million or something like that. But 80 million euros is like 70 million pounds or something like that. So yeah, if they get Ekitike, they get Ekitike. I don't know I don't know how to say it other than like I'm focused on what we're doing. And I think what we're doing is good. Leipzig price Sesko out of the market. Do you think Hand of Arsenal is Berta's man he uses for press? Seems like they've turned up at some time. I don't know. I actually have no idea, because he was actually Hand of Arsenal was around pre-Berta. He was just, there was no window open. So he was more giving lineups, before. So I don't know if he's Berta's man or not. I don't know who this person is. He needs to stay incognito though. That's what makes it cool, is I don't know who you are, so but I don't know if I believe he's Berta's actual guy, because he was actually around before. He's just giving us transfer news instead of like lineups, because before he was giving us lineups. Boy says, or sorry, Dio says, these men worried about Ekitike. Now we're getting Gyokeres. Why you man worried about Ekitike? Move Reece Nelson, Zinni, Lakanga, Fabio Vieira, and we're cooking. They wanted 100 million. They dropped to 75 million, implying that somebody is getting screwed. And I think Newcastle got done there. Frankfurt got good money. I mean, at the end of the day, like, listen, I'm not worried about Newcastle's finances because they're the richest club in the Premier League. So if they got screwed, they got screwed. At the end of the day, that's one less option for Liverpool, so I just wonder what they're going to do. And I just feel like, not being able to sell Nunez is really impactful for them, because they do need to shift players on. I know that they sell well, but I think they were kind of counting on being able to sell Luis Diaz or Nunez for good fees. And a lot of these clubs are saying, fuck that shit. Clubs that are coming in with these extraordinary fees, they're getting like, no thanks, but no thanks. Wanting 70 million or something for Garnacho. Thanks, but no thanks. Stuff like that. No, we'll only take a loan for Rashford. We're not going to spend 40 million on him. I think clubs are getting smarter, and they're like, nah, we'll just do something different. And so people are getting priced out of moves, and you need to be able to move those players on to go and get these other players. So we'll see. If Ekitike goes Newcastle, that's our Gyokeres replacement for when he turns 33 as our backup. Get Eze done, man. We have to change the left wing. If that's Eze, fine. If Rodrygo, fine. Just don't keep the same two in that position. Liverpool might go for Mateta, which is what I said earlier. And I actually think Mateta would be a good signing for them. I think he'd do well. I actually think Mateta can play at a higher level. I just don't think it's as scary as if they were to get Isak. Do you know what I mean? So let's see. Gordon to Liverpool. Don't know why. I just see it. I mean, isn't he a Scouser anyway? So I feel like that makes sense. I think he's a Northern boy. I don't think he'll ever leave the North. So that's a big reason why I was like, he's not coming to no Arsenal. I mean, he would if we pay him out the ass, but he's not coming to no Arsenal. Come on. That is a Northern boy. He's going to stay up there. Way up there, So Mateta is a good Jota replacement, RIP. Yeah, and I think he gives them a little bit of like an Origi, type of vibe as well. Sesko to Liverpool. Here we go. How old is Mateta? He looks 33. Mateta is young still, I feel. Is he not 25 or 24? Mateta's not old. He just looks old because he had that bald head. Watch him. No, I said he's 24. Sorry. I thought he was young still. He's 28. Just kidding. He's older. He's old. I thought he was still young. He was just bald. So yeah, maybe he really is like an Origi, but he's a really good player. I like him. He'll do well at Liverpool if he ends up going. Oh, let me read this to you guys. There remains caution at Newcastle given the PSR restrictions behind the scenes and a huge price tag for Ekitike. The stance from Toon's chief is that Players could be sold in order to help raise funds for the star who has an 86 million release clause. If people think that that's going to be Isak, they're smoking crack. It's going to be Gordon. They're going to sell Gordon. Like, that's the person that they're going to sell. Henry Winter's tweet yesterday about Arsenal coming to fruition. Yay. That was so random. I know people are like, oh, he has sources, but he's not somebody that I feel like we actively go to for news, So, yeah, I feel like that was so random, but I loved it. Mateta is like 27, 28, bald head tax, same thing as what happens to Mbomo. To me, maybe he's just age ambiguous. It's like he could be anything. I guess if you told me he was 40, I'd believe you. But if you told me he's 24, I'd also believe you. But yeah, bald head tax is real. It's real. Like the way people were treating Mbomo, I was like, you guys just don't like him because he doesn't have hair. Like, that's all it really is. He's such a good player, but they're like, is he really that good? Like, I'm like, of course he's really that good. What do you mean? What Jess is saying is Gordon can't handle a tan. What I'm saying is that I cannot see him in London. That's what I'm saying. MM says Javi Simons and Lookman. It's crazy that they haven't moved. Javi Simons also, the price is going down on him as well. I saw something earlier about Javi Simons that Leipzig are willing to do a deal lower than their 70 million euro price tag. So let's see. Leipzig are open to negotiate below the 70 million, which is 61 million pounds for Javi Simons. That's good for us. I actually think that that's really good for us in terms of the Eze negotiations. We have something to leverage against because we are interested in Simons. You know what I mean? So it's like we could go elsewhere, we can go elsewhere. Our number one is Eze, but there's somebody else that we could go for that does kind of like similar things. I still would take Simons. I'm in love with the idea of Eze for sure, just because, the story and all of that. It's vibey. I like vibes. I like stories. I'm sorry. I'm typical Disney Arsenal fan. I want the story, but I feel like that's useful, because that you could go somewhere else and they also know you can go somewhere else and there's a fee that you could kind of put up against it and say, well, I could pay less, here, so yeah, but I like it. I like our odds of getting this type of player in. But I don't think it would be like Simons and Eze. It would definitely be one or the other because the winger needs to be a different profile. Because also with the Newcastle stepping up their interest in Ekitike, hear me out. In order for them to play the two of them up front and to also keep their three in the middle, I don't think they'd be that devastated if they ended up selling Gordon. This is why I think they'll sell Gordon and they won't sell Isak, because essentially they can just play Isak on the wing. Play Isak on the wing. They've done it before. Play Isak, left wing, Ekitike through the middle. They play off of each other, and they have Harvey Barnes if they need to play an actual winger. Like, it just makes sense. It obviously is like, it's not like the best sense you want to make of it, because it's like, damn, that could really work. That sounds really good. So yeah. Look at me doing tactics and stuff. It's almost like I should be a coach or a tactician or something like that, because I got the tactics down. Just play them on the wing. Why not? So let's see. Sebastian says Bayern will get Simons because they lost Musiala. Why haven't they moved for him yet? Maybe they're waiting for Leipzig to get desperate, because it could just, Bayern don't like to pay. The Bayern are not the type of club. I feel like they're used to people just like giving them players. So they're like, what do you mean we have to pay? Just give us the player, So maybe they're hoping that RB Leipzig gets desperate, because I still think Leipzig are in a position where they need to sell. So if they can't sell Sesko, then this is the next person up. So maybe Bayern are just waiting, to see. But no, you need to take Trossard. But those are two different things anyway, because you can get Trossard, he's the winger, and also get Javi Simons. They've lost Musiala, but even pre-Musiala, they wanted a winger. So, um, Tacticologia. I struggled to read that. Sorry. Now I'll let Bayern take Trossi. Hands off Trossard. I think Trossard will go Bayern. That's a really good move for him, to be honest. You know, how did Arteta and Wenger agree Isak is the dream signing, and we had no links to Ekatike? I don't know. I don't listen. I think Isak and Ekatike, I get that they have similarities, but I actually think they're quite different. I think they have similarities in terms of the way they move and their stature and stuff like that. But Isak is actually a like more of like a deadly finisher. I actually think Ekatike really does fit more of the mold of like a taller Jesus. I don't think he's actually like a hard-nosed finisher. I don't see him getting 20 goals. And so I think what Arsenal want is they want somebody that's going to be prolific in the box. Isak is pretty prolific in the box. He can do all the like going outside and stuff like that, but we've seen that like he's really improved on like his box presence, which is why he was able to score that headed goal against us, right? And so I actually think Ekatike is better being more of that facilitator second striker than the actual 9, where Isak can thrive as the number 9. And so I think that's a big reason why. I know that people see Ekatike and Isak as like these interchangeable things, and they have a lot of similarities, but Ekatike to me is not a player that you'd want to be your only number 9. He reminds me so much of Jesus in the way that he facilitates for everybody else around him, but is he a deadly finisher? No. You know, if he gets a lot of chances, is he going to score goals? Yes, but that's similar to Gabriel Jesus. But that's just my take on it. I could be wrong. Ekatike is like Xerxes. Ekatike playing Isak through on goal. Exactly. At one point, Javi Simons had 1 year left. No one wanted him, and all those loans at big clubs. If he wanted clubs like Arsenal, Liverpool, or Dortmund, re-signing Leipzig was dump. Johnny D says Ekatike reminds me of Nketiah more than Jesus. Fair enough. They won 100 million euros for who? Roscoe says, "What does that even mean, bruh? What are you guys talking about?" Hold on. What's going on? Is something happening? Hold on. Leipzig is definitely fumbling this window. Bayern will get Diaz. Liverpool get Gordon. Well, that's not good of us. For us, we want them to get Trossard. But Bayern also already put in an offer for Diaz and got rejected. And I think that's why they're looking elsewhere, because I just don't think Bayern, they're not used to really paying those big fees because they're used to the Bundesliga teams just giving them players. But I just don't think that they have the money for it, you know? So I think that's why they're looking for cheaper options. But that's just what I'm seeing, but whatever. Glad to hear Ethan is signing a new deal. Fantastic news. Rodrygo loan on deadline day. Musiala is only out for 2-3 months. Glad to hear. Oh, no, I read that one. Sorry, my brain is kind of fried. Like I told you guys, I was up at like 1 a.m. and I fell back asleep at like 6. And then I woke up at like 9, you know, so I feel like I'm somewhere else. Isak is fire, but he's always injured. Always. Could you shed some light on the rumors that we have been unable to offer some of our departing youth players contracts reflective of their talent simply because we've given Dowman a lucrative deal? Well, I'd like to be able to shed light on that, but I don't really know much about that, to be honest. I mean, I know that there's like an ever-growing conversation around our youth program and, you know, the academy, and like why is it so much like so many players are leaving on a free and we're not able to tie them down to new deals early and send them out on loans early, and how we're just kind of like letting all this talent go. But I don't actually know that we're struggling. Like, I haven't really heard that we're struggling because we've given Max Dowman a big deal. I actually haven't heard that, so I can't really shed light on that. And I'm sorry that I cannot do that, but maybe some information will come out sooner rather than later. And then maybe I'll be able to talk about that. Let's see. Liverpool are desperate to sell Diaz and Nunez for big money. I think that's how they're planning to finance their incomings. Think they're hoping they would go Saudi. Crazy that clubs have to pay agents who work for players. If Ekitike joins Newcastle, he'll be the Gordon replacement and he can start up front if needed. I think as a club, we have an issue with retaining our subpar youth players. We don't have issues with the exceptional youth players, but we seem to struggle at keeping the average guys. I don't know. Yeah, I kind of agree. I think that it'd be nice to be able to keep them a little bit longer, get them on new deals, and, see. Even David Ornstein has said Hugo Ekitike would play alongside Alexander Isak, not his replacement. I don't know how many times people need to hear it. They need to be so serious right now. Newcastle are not. I need people to understand that, like, as much as it sucks to hear, Newcastle are not here to play around. They are back in the Champions League. Remember, they got into Champions League and then they had like that terrible season. I think they got grouped. Did they not get grouped in the Champions League? And then they finished outside of European competition, and now they're back. They're not going to want to lose this opportunity again. They are a massive club that have massive backing from Saudi owners. They are not going to sell their best player to Liverpool. They are not Brighton. They are not West Ham. They are not these teams that need to sell to them. I don't know why people think that they're just going to give their best player over because they think they're going to get them. I just don't understand that. Like, come on. I really hope we don't lose Kiwi. The commitment he showed and how he improved with the regular minutes was so impressive. He fits in, and we need a consistent, not injured, reliable guy. I saw that a former Man U player is suing Man U. Yeah, it's Twanzabi, I think it is. They're just going through it, aren't they? I mean, it still could happen. It's only like 8 p.m. UK time, almost 7:30, 8 p.m. But still no Mbomo. Here we go. Have they gotten it yet? It's looking dark for them. I can't lie. Newcastle are a big team now. They aren't being bullied out of keeping Isak. Ekitike is not the end of Isak at Newcastle just because he costs a lot. They have super rich owners. This is what I'm saying. I'm like, it's like they just think people are going to bully Newcastle and they're some small team. They're not small team. Like, they're going to try to compete. And I could definitely see them selling Gordon instead and then just playing Isak on the wing. And that's how they get the two of them in there together. But I'm like, they don't have to sell. And because I'm like, if it's us, I'm thinking, why would we sell our best player? If you think about it from your perspective, you can see why it doesn't make sense. But when you're thinking about it and you're like, I want the player, you can make up every reason why they should come or why you're going to get them. And it's like, I just don't see Newcastle are not stupid. They're just not. Isak is pretty injury prone. I can see them selling Isak to Liverpool for 150 million and replacing Sir Jim, pulling Man U fans' legs with no action since he came in, but complain about this and that. Right. Newcastle don't need the money. It's Newcastle, Liverpool cope. They are chasing Isak like they did with Zubimendi, only to end up with Tesco. Jess, do you think negotiations will be slower due to Crystal Palace being demoted? You know why I think they're going to be slow? I think they're going to be slow because Crystal Palace are going to be dicks. That's why I think it's going to be slow. I don't know if I think it's going to be about the demotion, but I do think that they're going to want more money. Um, because they're London rivals and all that kind of stuff. And so, yeah, I don't actually think it's going to be about the demotion. Now, I do think that the demotion is not necessarily a positive thing for us. People were saying, that, um, you know, uh, this means Eze is going to come because, they've been demoted. And I'm like, I don't actually see that as a positive for us. I think if you're in Europa League, you're gonna make more money than if you're in the Conference League, and so essentially, they're gonna probably want a little bit more. Maybe that slows things down a little bit, but I think Crystal Palace are gonna make it hard for us no matter what. I think, teams like Crystal Palace, want to show people that they're not just like these small teams that are gonna get bullied, like, "You're gonna pay for our player." Yeah, and so I think that's all it's really gonna be about. London rivals wanting to make sure they show that, like, the big teams are not gonna bully them, all that kind of stuff. Steve Parish, horrified after the demotion to the Conference League. The man has a point. What I can't figure out is what they're doing with Eddie there. Let's see. Eze got a release clause. Arteta has the players to win the league, having finished second in the last 3 seasons. No excuses. Yeah, I mean, I think all of us feel like he needs to win a big trophy for sure. Palace always gets their valuation. It's why I need us to get this deal with Eze done before they sell Mateta. Onana out. Rashford, Sancho, Garnacho leaving. It's looking peak. I mean, are they actually leaving? I think most of the United fans that I've been looking at, like online, like watching their shows, are saying that they're really struggling to get people to actually be interested in these players. So I think it'd actually be positive for them if Rashford and Sancho and Garnacho were leaving. But if they can't get good fees for them or fees at all, then they can't reinvest into the team. This is why I know that it probably kind of goes against like what you should probably be trying to do. But when Saudi was offering the 100 million or whatever it was, or whatever fee it was for Bruno Fernandez, I felt like they should have took it, because they're going to need that money to reinvest. That not beating Tottenham has royally screwed them, and so now they're hoping for these fees for players that are on high wages that no one wants. No one wants these guys, So maybe at the end of the window, things will start to move for them a little bit more. But what I heard, Karos, was actually that it wasn't that Bruno said no. It was that the coach, Emery, he convinced him to stay. And so maybe I'm getting my information wrong, but if he convinced him to stay, I think that was a mistake, because there's so many good number 10s, younger 10s that are available, that even if you missed out on that, just little bit that Bruno gives you, you still would have been able to replace him with a good quality number 10. There's so many number 10s that were available this summer. So strange. They should keep them, but they already gave Rashford's number to Cunha. It might be a loan, for Rashford at the end of the day. Arsenal are going to break their own record going through the whole season undefeated. Still baffles me that we are playing Newcastle and Spurs in preseason. O'Malley, if I speak on this thing, it makes no sense. Preseason is for getting your fitness up and for confidence building. It's really not about, I mean, I know for clubs now it's about selling tickets and making money and brand awareness and things like that. But what? It just feels so annoying. It just feels so annoying. But hey, I don't think so. Maybe a loan somewhere. I want the best midfielder in the world to stay at in OT. It's all about money. Didn't Chelsea injure party in that preseason game? Yes. Ruben Loftus-Cheek, and he was out for months, which obviously impacted our season, because at that point there was no Rice, there was nothing else, So yeah, I think it's very it's a little bit, I wouldn't say concerning, but It's just not my favorite. I like watching preseason games with nothing on it. Like rivals are gonna be buying the package and making and doing up like um fail comps and oh so and so is shit and all this. And it's just like, oh my gosh, preseason is not even for this. Um, but the best preseason that we had, um, under Mikel, we played some like shit sides before we played Chelsea. We didn't play very many good teams. Um, we played like Orlando from MLS. We played Everton. Like we played teams like that. And I felt like that was just to me so much better because once we got to Chelsea, we had already kind of like built things up. But like our first preseason game is AC Milan and then the next one is Newcastle. I just don't think that this is the way we should do it. But hey, yeah, Nuremberg, Orlando, like you're just supposed to be getting your fitness up and getting the confidence up. You don't need it to mean something. And of course, preseason games don't mean anything, but they do when you're all of a sudden playing rivals and shit. Trossard to Bayern for 22 million, I'm seeing. That would be great. I would love to beat Newcastle at St. James this season. I was at the Chelsea preseason match at 22-23. Rice's first game against United, the way rivals were hate watching was this is what I'm saying, MM. This is what I'm saying. It's like this is just long. I mean, you played Tottenham and Newcastle. Thomas Frank and them are gonna want to do, he doesn't want to lose his first North London derby, so it's gonna mean more. Eddie Howe and his thugs are gonna be doing what they do, and I'm just trying to see light jogging and some skills, and to watch the new players kind of have a little fun. I'm not trying to see all out war. Like it's just not what I'm into, but whatever, you know. It's not my decision. But if it was my decision, we'd be playing Singaporean All-Stars, you know? Like we would be playing nonsense teams, like teams you'd never heard of before, you know? Like, and if we did play teams, like I liked when we played Leverkusen last summer, there's nothing on it. Leverkusen are not a rival, it's like, why can't we do that? Just put the kids versus Spurs. Right. We're playing Watford first. Yes, we are. We're playing them first in like a behind closed doors friendly, which I like that because you're just getting your fitness up. We don't need to, it doesn't need to be a thing, but whatever. Rivals be watching Arsenal more than their own teams out. Right. And because I have never in my life paid to watch. I don't watch our rivals preseason games unless I'm working. You have to pay me to do that. I'm not watching your preseason games just because I want to. I would never pay. Fine shame. I would never pay. But when I saw rivals were paying the little package to watch us do a skills challenge against MLS All-Stars, I was like, they're desperate. They're desperate. Like that, you know how crazy that is? Do you know how crazy that is? That's insane. And they were doing up fail comps of Kai, and I was like, ah. Like I liked when we played Barcelona in preseason, just about. I thought one of their players was out of control. His name was Araujo or whatever, the center back. He was out of control. I don't know what he was on, but I like when we played Barcelona. I like when we play Leverkusen. That's fine. I'm sure AC Milan will be fine. But that Newcastle and Spurs game, I'm not looking forward to that. Nabi Ply says Arsenal top of the league after a first 6-0 demolition at Old Trafford. Saka, Odegaard, Gyokeres, and Gabriel Bullets. I'm hoping so. Has anybody visited Rwanda, by the way, maybe preseason there? I won't really speak on that. Marco says Eddie Howe and his thugs, Joe Linton, really could play a henchman in a gangster movie. I mean, are they not thugs? Like, it's all about knocking people around, I feel, So, and I know some people were saying stuff about Chelsea and them looking good. And I do think they do look good and they will be a lot closer in the title race. But I will say that, like, I think from an Arsenal perspective, I know there's always going to be pressure on us. and we have internal pressure and external pressure. But I'm actually okay with another team being the team that's meant to be challenging and like the team that's getting all the eyes. Like I'm actually okay with that. I actually feel like it's better for us. Um, I can already sense that, people will probably put us lower down and, we'll be maybe scraping top four, but we won't be in a title race or, we just not as good as so and so and so and so. I'm kind of okay with that. I feel like there's been so much of a hyper focus on us that I'm actually looking forward to somebody else getting more of the focus. I think Chelsea will get most of the focus this season because they're the new us from like 3 years ago. And so it's like we could just do our business and take care of our business without it being about, well, are Arsenal good enough? Are they going to be in title race? You know, but that's just me. All of our signings point towards a more transition-based play style. I'll be tuning into preseason games. How do you guys feel about that? How do you guys feel our playing style is going to change? Because I saw somebody saying, and like, listen, I don't listen to all of our tacticos, but I did find it interesting that, well, one, let's talk about how world football has changed. I did a video on this at the beginning of the transfer window when we first watched the Champions League final and how the more stationary kind of tactical team, the slower team with less athleticism, got absolutely worked by PSG, right? That was the name of the show, actually. The title was Football is Evolving. And so, I was looking at that and I was like, if we don't change, we're going to get left behind. Because I'm also looking at, the signings that other people are making, especially like somebody like Man City, because there's a lot of comparison between Arsenal and Man City naturally because of the players and the manager and stuff like that. But, Pep bringing in a Shirky and telling him that he can get on the pitch and do whatever he wants, bringing in a Reinders, bringing in players like that. I'm like, really leaning into Doku and Savinho and stuff like that. I'm like, okay, he's probably changing his tactics, because he's bringing in new coaches that are going to give him new ideas. His new number two is Klopp's old number two. And we know what Liverpool were about a couple of years ago. Transition forward, very, very like, they called them rock and roll, playing a very transitional style, run, 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 And so if they're doing that, what are we going to do? Right. I'm not saying that we have to change just because everybody else is changing, but we need to make sure that we're not falling behind or falling victim of trying to perfect a system that, to be quite frank, we haven't won anything with and we haven't looked like winning anything with. I had the conversation with Matisse the other day, and he said Arsenal have not looked anywhere near as dangerous as we looked in the 2022-2023 season. I also spoke to Sam about this, and he said the same thing. So obviously we had a really good period at the back end of the 23-24 season, but we were so much more dynamic. We ran a lot more in the 23-24 or 22-23 season. We had a lot more transition moments, and we weren't so heavily focused on control and possession, right? And so how are these players that we're bringing in going to give us a different look? Because I know that people are like, well, how are these players going to fit in? We're always against deep blocks. And I'm like, I think also the deep blocks are almost like a reaction to the way that we set up. If we set up differently and we have solutions for the deep block immediately, then the deep block won't exist anymore. Liverpool never really play against deep blocks. They don't. And I feel like because they already know it's not going to work, they can play in behind, they can dribble past you, they can just bully you, they could do so many different things. And so we're quite one-dimensional. And so I'm thinking you're bringing in a Gyokeres instead of a Sesko. That's going to change things. And it's not so much that, Gyokeres is not going to be able to adapt the way that we play. We're going to have to adapt to him. And that's probably going to be beneficial to us. Even, I don't love the signing, but Nani is more of a transition threat. He's somebody that can break down blocks by dribbling through people. He's more direct. He's also has a lot of pace. He's pacey. Gyokeres is pacey. You bring in Eze. He has transition inevitability or whatever that is. And so you're bringing in dribblers, you're bringing in carriers, you're bringing in transition threat. I'm like, I can't get this word out. Transition threat. And how is that going to help us get to where we want to go? I don't want to see us double down on a style that has been unsuccessful for 2 seasons, So I think it's not so much about trying to, you know, go into a system where we're going to have 30% possession and counterattack. But I also think we just need to take advantage of situations where we can pass it in behind and we actually give it to the player and they score. Also taking advantage of situations where we do nick the ball off of a team and they're outside of a settled block and we actually score that goal. It's those different things that I feel like is going to help us because, we are boring. 22-23 season when we challenged, it was very fast paced and gassed out. 23-24, we slowed down first half and increased the pace second half. 24-25 tried to copy that model but got hit hard with injuries. I still think though, my problem with it is maybe we don't want to gas out like we did in that first season, but also we didn't have the depth that we have now. A lot of the gassing out was that we had 13 players that we rinsed, and then we also rinsed them the next season because we still didn't have the depth. This will probably be the first season that I'll look at our depth and feel like, especially if we were able to get Eze and stuff like that I'll feel like we can actually go a little bit harder, pause. We can go a little bit more, transitional and run a little bit more and press a lot more because we'll be able to trust the subs that come in, Let's see. Hate to tell you, Arsenal will be under intense spotlight, especially Arteta, plus our fan base will have a meltdown every point dropped. If Arsenal were to go La Liga would earn more money than Premier League. We're box office, everyone hates us. Let's see. Gyokeres will get at least a brace at Old Trafford. I like how wild Calafiori is on the pitch. 1 minute he's a striker, the other minute he's the last man. We will score more this season. This is my prediction as long as we don't focus heavily on control. And I think that's the thing is people are like, well, Zubimendi's going to give us more control. And I'm like, to a certain extent, but he's going to help us with tempo. I think people are forgetting that we were saying it, but the club confirmed it, with the announcement. The announcement said coming in to help with the tempo or control the tempo or whatever, but tempo was a specific word used in his announcement. And control and tempo to me are two completely different things because it does give you control of the game, but tempo to me is more about how the game is going and speeding it up and slowing it down. One thing about Zubi that's super important is that he knows when to release the ball. So he's not going to hold on to it for long periods of time. He's going to be able to find those seams and pass it in between the lines to Odegaard or to Gyokeres or to whoever to make sure those attacks don't fail like they have been because we're just looking for the perfect pass. So I think Zubi's being overlooked and almost looked at because he's a Spanish midfielder as, we're going to try to hold on to the ball more. But I actually think what's so special about Zubi is he knows when to let it go. And that's something that I feel like we've forgotten. Let's see. Zubi is a metronome. The announcement video is the clue. Not been excited for the new season since 1998 with Tony Adams as captain. Let's see. The thing with Noni is that Chelsea give him the freedom to take on players and to run with the ball. Nelly definitely feels less dynamic. The signing of Havertz and Rice alongside Jorginho, an injury-prone party, and hot-cold Odegaard definitely slowed Arsenal down. I think counterattacking type play style is amazing to watch. With the quality of our defense, it's feasible as well. I think it's just about even if we do have to go up against a settled block, we just don't unlock it quick enough. We get an early chance and we don't put the ball in the back of the net. We win it up high when they're unsettled and we don't put the ball in the back of the net. We don't even attempt to try to dribble through it and maybe get an early penalty. There's so many things that we could do to make sure that teams don't feel like that's like a surefire thing against us. But having dribblers, and having better finishers and just better box presence as well, having players that if it just is bobbling around, they just kick it in the back of the net, that'll help us. So I think we're helping ourselves by bringing in players that can solve those problems and also that they have pace, They're good dribblers. They have that transitional inevitability, or whatever you want to call it. And somebody had said, which I was supposed to say earlier, but I didn't say it. I don't know why. I just got lost. But I think his name is like TM Ball or something like that. But he said something interesting and said that the Premier League is moving more like the Bundesliga, and not from like a quality standpoint, but a play style where teams are transitioning more counterattacking runners, athletes, dribblers. And I'm like, if that's the case, we need to make sure that we are not a team that has to rely upon passing through situations to unlock these blocks. We need to be able to run, we need to be able to dribble. We need to be able to beat people 1v1, and put the ball in the back of the net. It's something that really needs to happen. And even, Arsene spoke about it and said, what makes PSG so good is that they don't have to pass through the blocks. They can just dribble around you, and I'm like, we don't have that ability. I know we have Declan Rice who can carry, but I think it's different carrying it through open space than seeing a settled block and being able to dribble past one or two players, right? Carrying is defo taking over. Daniel says Gyokeres will score, and before you even finish watching the first highlight, he will score the second. It is incredibly rare to see a wealth of players who can do different things. I think we have that now. Arsenal has Rice in midfield. Forget about midfield control unless bullying midfield like Chelsea did PSG. You can and they will allow it with the waffle. I don't know what we're responding to, but whatever. Our up top movement has been poor, seemed very unsure last year. And it's like a combination, I feel like, of players that, maybe didn't want to take responsibility and making those dynamic runs and making them over and over again. And then also the players on the ball not being confident enough to release the ball because they're so afraid to lose it. We have gotten to the stage where losing the ball is an emergency. It's an emergency, you guys. Like literally, if one of our players loses the ball, even if it's way up high in the opposition's box, you'll watch the timeline and they'll be like, oh my gosh. It's like, hold on. When you're actually trying to attack, like so many of your actions are not going to come off. If you want people to actually try to pass through the lines, you have to accept that some of those passes are not going to make it through, but you want them to still be confident enough to attempt it. If the only passes that they're allowed to attempt are passes that are going to make it to their teammate, that's why you're going to get sideways and backwards passing, because it's a high probability that will happen, right? And so I'm like, damn. And I think it came from Mikel because he became more pragmatic and a little bit more fearful of losing the ball. He didn't want to concede, but it trickled into the players and then it trickled into the fan base. Losing the ball in the opposition's half should not be an emergency. You don't want to make a habit of it, but equally, it shouldn't be something where we are like, oh my God, you lost the ball. Do you guys not watch other people play? The amount of like the good players that I'm talking about, not even like, like players that we don't rate, but players that we rate, how many times that like their pass doesn't come off or their initial shot doesn't come off, or, they try to dribble and they lose the ball. You guys would not make it. You would not make it. You would not make it, So I think we have to be more confident in trying things that are a little bit more risky, but also knowing that we have a good enough defense to make sure that the ball doesn't, we don't concede. But equally, even if we do concede, we know we're going to score again. That also has left us, is if we don't score, we're initially, you can see that there's nervousness there. But if we concede, oh baby, it's over. It's over, because it doesn't look like they believe, so yeah. Let's see. I don't see Gabriel Jesus value add in this team anymore. What do you think? Um, I feel like I've said quite a bit that I felt like we should have sold him a while back, but Now he's injured, and so I think the plan is for him to get sold. I think he would have been sold this summer had he had not torn his ACL. Um, I think once September rolls around and he's starting to really train again, that there'll be another push for him to be added to the squad, and he will be and will be utilized sparingly. But, you know, I think the fan base only really is still obsessed with him because we haven't bought any attackers. We haven't. I think once we have good attackers, if you buy Eze and you have Gyokeres and whatever, then we'll be less desperate to like harken back to the 2022-2023 season. I feel like that's mostly why people are still holding on to it, because that's the last time that a forward has impacted us in that way. So um in terms of like value add, like I just feel like he's on the way out. I don't actually feel like it's gonna happen. Like he's gonna leave. It's just a matter of, is it gonna be January or is it gonna be next summer? But he'll definitely go. Could he be a player that is a decent squad player for the rest of the season once he comes back? Potentially. But I just imagine that with adding Madueke, with adding like an Eze, maybe even a left wing, Gyokeres, and you still have Havertz and whatever, how much of an impact is he going to have? So yeah, I like Gabriel Jesus. I do kind of feel like his time is come and gone. So it's just about getting him in fit, playing him enough so people can see him, and then selling him. Jordan says, hopefully Jesus can back to decent form if we can get him to play in cup games. He was balling before the injury, though. He was. Saudis love Martinelli. I take 85 million now. Hee hee. Let's see. I totally agree. But 2 seasons ago, we were winning back the ball in seconds, but not last year. The football last year was a bit hobbling, maybe because all of our backups in at times. And they said that they started the season knowing that players would get injured because they were, not fit enough. And I think that that's interesting because I'm like, how can you press and play the way we did in the 2022-2023 season when players are not getting adequate rest? They're coming off of the Euros. They had a hard season the season prior. Some of our players have always been ran into the ground. The Ben Whites, the Sakas, the Odegaards, they don't get any rest, whatsoever. We have been running the same 13 players for a long time. You add somebody like Declan Rice, who played every minute for West Ham, then plays every minute for England, plays every minute for us as well. You add Kai, he plays lots of minutes as well. And so I think with more rest and more ability to rotate, we should feel like we can play a little bit more of an intense style. And I think we need to play an intense style. I think when we play a more slower style, we're so much less dynamic. So yeah, I mean, 1-2 touch, actual runs, direct, playing on the counterattack at times, that suits us so much more. But like you said, you can't really do that if you're not up to the level of fitness. And you could tell early on that our players were not fit, not because they weren't training hard, but because they had been overworked. Carl says Saliba plays the most minutes for us, which is why Mosquera is so important. I think that signing is going to go under the radar because it's a defensive signing, but 15 million for somebody that's going to help us save Saliba, I think is really important. The biggest signing Arsenal has made is fast-paced play and reduce injury worry, though proper depth. Absolutely no to Berta era. Any corporation basing their entire destiny on recruitment is absolutely effed. I don't know what this means, Martin, I'll be honest. Let's see. Josh Kroenke walking the talk. He has stepped old Josh. Jess, we are in risky business this 2026 season about Jesus. You guys please stop the capping. Jess, we are a risky business this 2026 season about Jesus. You guys please stop with the capping. I don't know what this means. Does this mean stop talking about Jesus? That's why I answered the poll. We are not cooking yet. I want us to get Eze. Jesus is better than Pepe vibes. MA is weird in the sense that he built a great defensive unit, yet he's afraid of losing the ball in attack. Very strange. We've spoken about this a lot. Like, shouldn't you be more adventurous because you have such a great defense? Yeah, I feel like he should be a lot more proactive, but I just think he's scared, man. Let's see. Yeah, I don't get it. He should be a lot more adventurous, and I just trust our defense a lot more to do that in individual defensive work without needing everybody back. But it would also help Saka and players like that not to have to defend as much. When Saka and Martinelli have defensive numbers like fullbacks, it's just strange. Hi, Hi, Jess. Being Italian, I know Andrea Berta well. I was happy when he arrived. He has always been a winner with the right mentality. There's a new era at Arsenal. Let's see. Jesus, some the lack of articulation and writing skills in these comments shaking my head. I mean, I'm also reading them terribly, so not too much on them, not too much. I don't think it matters who we sign unless we get back the Odegaard and Arteta of 23-24. The best version of Arsenal by far need both at their best. I kind of agree with that as well. Let's see. She knows, believe me, we will need a new Arteta to make use of what he's bringing in. Not seeing the here we go on Victor just keeps annoying me. I mean, the final details. We don't have anything to worry about, guys. Like, I get it that we want it done like right now, the here we go, but you know how those final details and all that kind of stuff takes time. And this is it's not the biggest deal in the world, but it's not small either, so nothing really to worry about. Comps were showing Kiwior with some speed. I like what I see on the Mosquera comps, but we need to see him in a few games before passing judgment. Let's see. Gunnar says, my biggest worry is Rice and Odegaard. Eze is needed to compete with these two. Ben Jacobs yesterday on Curtis Shaw TV said, here at Arsenal have a lot of PSR room, so signing both Eze and Rodrygo is possible without selling, but Trossard is leaving. Well, that's nice to know. I do feel like we'll get Eze. I feel like we'll get him. Now the winger, let's see. Has Rodrygo even said he wants to leave yet? So yeah. Let's see. Jackson, a Todd Bowley signing Chelsea, cottoned onto his limitations. And stop being so paranoid. Just go on with your lives. Gyokeres will be here very soon. Big up Jesus. He's an Arsenal player for life. The guy who made the caption about Jesus, I think he means people should get over him and stop telling themselves that he's going to get back or better to his 2022 form. And I get that. I just think like ultimately we're not in a situation, I feel like, where we need to be that worried about it. It's not, we don't need to worry about Jesus coming back. Where is he going to be at? It's like you have Saka, you've already bought another winger, the strikers coming in. We don't need to be worried about it. We know he's going to leave. So yeah, I'm not particularly worried about Jesus because I do think he'll leave sooner rather than later. And, maybe he plays a little squad role or he doesn't, because I think we're kind of planning without him. It's not like, I don't think they're planning on the depth chart for him to be some important player. Knee injuries are a killer, never 100% fit again. Jesus on the left side, Kai, versatile squad player. The fact we all knew that the team was going to be most games, so we were easy to plan for. I want to see more variety in starting lineups with a bigger squad. I agree with Keith. I think I want to see games where there's no, like we're not necessarily super surprised that we don't see Odegaard, we see Ethan, or we see Eze instead of Rice. I want to see more active rotation outside of players actually getting injured. Obviously, our defense will probably mostly look the same all the time, but in terms of midfield and attack, I'd like to see some variation, so we can get used to not having such a small squad, So, Brown Envelope says, is this make or break season for Calafiori? I don't know how you guys feel about it. I think so. I mean, in terms of like, I don't think I don't think based on what we've been through that we can afford to have a player that just is out the entire season. We've done it with Tommy and we've done it with multiple players, So, yeah, I think he has to show why we basically only got a left back last summer. I know we got Marino, but you know what I mean, So, I kind of think so. And I think if he's able to stay fit, he's like a new signing. He just didn't play anywhere near enough minutes, So I kind of think so, but I think he kind of knows it as well. I think he already said that he needs to stay fit, So yeah, I think he knows, you know. Um, Let's see. I wonder, will Gyokeres' agent call in a favor after waiving his fee? A bit of a mixed bag here. I wonder if Gyokeres' agent call in a favor after waiving his fee a bit. He's very, very good friends with Arteta too. Oh, a favor for us to buy one of his other thingies. And Hand of Arsenal says he is very good friends with Arteta. Gyokeres' agent is really good friends with Mikel. That's interesting. I didn't know that. Hand of Arsenal is saying that. Listen, he has some good clients. He has some good clients, or some clients that I like. I don't think we'll get some of these players, but I like some of these players. Remember Amrabat, you guys? Do you remember that? Do you remember him having that like really good World Cup and then being at Manchester United and doing absolutely nothing? But he has like Noah Lang, he has Zagrova, he has Gyokeres, he has Frankie de Jong, and he has Akliouche. You guys know how I feel about Akliouche. No surprise why we've been linked with him. Because if you're talking to him about Gyokeres, you need to talk to him about Akliouche as well. Yeah. Gyokeres will sell thousands of shirts, transfer fee back very quickly. And well, if that agent is calling in a favor of never playing Havertz in important games over Gyokeres, we need to erect that agent a statue before Arteta. Conspiracy, City of Broken Dreams, Man United. What y'all talking about? Calafiori is not a left back in the EPL, that's for sure. Oh yeah, you guys are talking about Amrabat. That was crazy. He like had that really good. I mean, Morocco had that excellent, run in the World Cup. They were the best story to me of the World Cup. And he was a big part of it. Remember the tackle that he made, I think, on Mbappe? That led him to Man United, and he flopped. Gyokeres will probably pay his agent fees. Only question is, where does Havertz play, and does he play over Gyokeres? Listen. To me, he's a squad player now. And if he's not, then we've not bought the right striker. We've got to get away from him as a key piece of the puzzle. Yeah, I don't know. Where does he play? I don't know. If you buy Eze, how far down the depth chart is he for left center mid? You have Ethan, you're giving him a new big contract. How far down is he in the depth chart for right center mid? The 9, just backup 9 essentially, but you kind of need to, play Gyokeres. You don't need to, keep acting like he's some special guy that's going to lead us to greatness. Like, you're buying a literal striker now. We can stop the gimmick. He can play a squad role, and then he had 2 years left on his deal and we'll move him on. Not that it hasn't worked out, but it hasn't done anything for us to lift us up or make us better, so Yeah. Gyokeres will probably pay his agent fees. I read that one. Havertz brothers started answering those Bayern calls. Oh my God, the way they pretend Amrabat never happened is hilarious. It was crazy. Havertz left 8 if we keep the same formation, but he'd be way down the depth chart, Carl. I mean, he can play there, but it's like, you know, you would have Rice, Eze, and Marino that all play in that position. So he's 4th on that list, you know, because as slow as Marino is in that position, he still feels more like a natural choice at left center mid than Kai does. Right center mid, you have Odegaard and you have Ethan, and I would be spitting up blood if he played in the 10 role over Ethan. Ethan deserves those minutes. If Odegaard's not playing, then Ethan needs to be playing. The 9 is really the only position that I can see him getting minutes in, but like you're spending money on Gyokeres. He's moved heaven and earth. He's a better striker. Like I'm not seeing where he necessarily fits in that high, like on the depth chart, but that's just me. Havertz will hand out water bottles. That's a heat map. Yes, there's 60 games to play, but he's just, you know, he's not somebody that I'd be like worried about getting in there, you know. He's mostly just relief for Gyokeres in my mind, but whatever. Kai is just a utility player, in my opinion, as things stand. Norgard is a secret package to watch. Not going to lie, if I was Havertz, I'd try to get a move to Real Madrid because they need a link number 9. Havertz getting sold new year, and that dopamine will be better than Gyokeres signing. Madueke can play 3 positions. That's why Mikel wanted him. I wasn't excited going into last season. I'm going into this one. Zubi, Gyokeres, Eze, maybe Rodrygo, Lever Razors. He can play on the training field. I mean, it's just, do we need to keep the gimmick up? You know, I just don't think we need to. I'm not saying that he doesn't ever play, but he's just not somebody that I feel like we need to be like, well, how are we going to fit him into the team? Like, he's the backup to Gyokeres. Does it need to be any deeper than that? Like, you know? So we'll see. We shall see for sure. Let's see. Norgard, great for 5 million. What a bargain. He wasn't 5 million though. He was 12, you know, but I get what you're saying. Nobody's going for Sesko. Nobody. Red Bull fucked themselves over big time for sure. That valuation is outrageous. To me, Jesus is a deluxe squad player. Havertz needs to be an ex-squad player and believe in 12 months at the latest he will be. Jesus still has a chance to save his Arsenal squad place. It's not over. Well, I mean, if we're just talking about like from a talent perspective, if Jesus wasn't so injury prone, I'd prefer him in the team over Kai, you know, but like Nico is saying, Jesus is cooked, you know, so what can you do? Kevin says, see, reason I didn't want Sesko is because I was like, is he much better than Havertz? Not really. Prem is unforgiving for big, slow strikers. Holland can't beat anyone. Now they know his movement. I mean, I'll just say that Sesko is incredibly quick. You know, I think maybe he looks slow, but he was the fastest player at the Euros, you know, so he's not slow at all. But I kind of get what you're saying, you know. But we bought the wrong striker if Arteta doesn't feel confident playing him over Kai Havertz, you know, so yeah. Neil Draken says, why are people mean to Kai? I mean, I just feel like personally, I feel like I'm being honest. Like people are asking me, you know, how he fits in, and I'm just being honest. Like, I just don't see him as more than a squad player, and I don't feel like I need to pretend like he's more than that in my mind, you know? So if that's mean, that's fair enough, but I'm just being honest. Just like when they were asking me about Jesus, I think that his career at Arsenal is pretty much done. But, you know, to be honest, it's like, I think Kai is just a very, what's the word? He's a very divisive signing and always has been and always will be. And to me, it's not that difficult to see why people have such a hard time accepting the signing. But, you know, some people did the okay, just let's accept it and support, and that's fine. But I don't actually think he's made us that much better. And he was a big outlay in a time where we really needed better than that. And I won't say that it set us back, but I'll definitely say that we have not progressed through that signing. So, I think people just want those better players around, and maybe they'll be able to um, accept Kai a little bit more when the other players come in and lessen his importance to the team just ever so slightly. Uh, you know, Serviceable. And I think Kai is a really good squad player. I mean, but this is the word, and I've been using this word quite a bit to describe some of the players that Arteta's brought in the last couple of windows. It's when Jesus and Zinchenko came in, no matter what you think of them now, they were level raisers at that time for Arsenal. Bringing Saliba back and bringing in Zinchenko and Jesus raised the levels from top 4 contender to title contender. Since then, we've had a mixture of, maybe one level raiser. I do think Declan Rice was a level raiser for us. I think also Raya was a level raiser for us, and Timber. But then there's been some serviceable players, or players that maybe weren't as bad as we thought. So because we went from thinking that they're going to be bad to serviceable, they've got this like they're so good, or they're good, and it's really just they're serviceable. We don't need any more serviceable signings, outside of bringing in like a Norgard, who I think he's actually still like maybe slightly above serviceable. We don't need players that we make work, or we made it work, or it was okay. We really need players that are lifting the level. And I think that's why Kai's ended up in the serviceable level. Marino's ended up in the serviceable level. And we've needed level raisers for a minute now. And so it's nothing wrong with having some of those players in your team, but it feels like a lot, where we're resting on these players and people are almost trying to elevate them into being more than just serviceable. That's all they are. They're just serviceable. They're not anything special, we don't have to pretend like they are. Excuse you. Enough. Kai represents Mikel's ego running wild, the ultimate vanity signing. Arteta brought trouble to himself when he signed Kai, and I think it will be the same if Madueke doesn't perform more than expected. I'm pretty sure our best run of the league was with Kai and J20 starting. Kai does miss easy chances at critical points in the game, though. Yeah, of course, like you can have good runs with serviceable players, but that doesn't change the fact that he's just not anything special. Like, I don't feel like I'm saying anything foreign when I'm like, he's just not really that special. He's also not somebody that's going to lead you to a title. He's not somebody that's going to score when we really need him to score. Again, he drew blank against Aston Villa in that run that he was, really good in. We had 2 games against Aston Villa, and he drew blanks in both of those, so I get what you're saying. Excuse you. You're being rude. Hey, Feds. But yeah, it's like he was a part of a time when we were playing well, so but he's not anything special. He's not raising the levels, and we don't need any more serviceable players or players that just fit in the system. We need players that are going to lift the level. That's really all it is. The dogs, Benz is just doing the most right now. Yes, I am chatting to my dog because they're behind me. And I just don't even want to tell you what he was doing, but it was just enough. Glad to be an Arsenal fan, though. Other clubs' transfers news is pretty lame. Gyokeres, he has football brain. Watch before he scores. He looks up the once. There's a lot of Arsenal haters over here. Not gonna lie, I was against Havertz signing, but he has done relatively well. But fans would have been more accepting of him if he was not a starter. I think he just represents so much about what has gone wrong since that first time that we challenged, and especially when it comes to players that need to play further forward. And so a lot of this I feel like will simmer down just ever so slightly when he's not a starter, or there's other top quality players in there, if that makes sense, you know, so I think it'll be fine. Um, I don't think it's a big deal. I'm just thinking like long term, next couple of, you know, transfer windows might be the time to move him on. Benzema, like he's on the Benza cough medicine every season. Havertz became a starter because Jesus didn't raise his level. I don't even think it was because Jesus didn't raise his level. It's because he couldn't maintain his fitness. It's just that simple. You know, it's not Jesus has played so little football for us because he's had so many injuries. It's not about him playing so poorly. I think it's just that simple. He can't maintain his fitness because every time that Jesus became fit, Arteta started him and played Kai in midfield. It was rare that Jesus was fit and he didn't come straight back into the 11. So Jesus's problem actually was just more about his fitness, not about him not raising his level. He hasn't played a lot of football for us. Kai scores goals. People forget that he's effective and gets into spaces Eddie never went to. I mean, but we're comparing him to Eddie. You know, we expect a player that we spent 65 million on, that's our highest earner, to be able to outdo Eddie and Kedia. The problem is Kai is not going to outdo any of the top players, and he doesn't score when you need him to. He doesn't score against Aston Villa when you need him to. You know, he doesn't score against Bayern when you need him to. It's just that. You're on camera. They can see you. Anyways, Jordan says, I mean, that's not really Jesus' fault. His body keeps failing him. And Eddie should have been sold 5+ years ago. So, yeah, but enough of that. I feel like, you know, we're in a good moment and, you know, not every day we have to relitigate the Kai thing. You know, he is what he is. Whether you like him or not, he's going to be at the club and we're going to hope that he does well. But listen, let's unless something happens, let's reconvene at another time, probably tomorrow. Unless something happens or something breaks. But if you're just joining, you're like, what's actually going on? I actually said like kind of where we were with everything at the beginning of the show. So I did like a little summary. So if you want to, you know, once I end the stream, go to the beginning, you can do that. But we have many irons in the fire. And to be honest, I'm feeling excited. You know, I have some goosebumps, not all the goosebumps, but I got some goosebumps. And I'm liking Berta era so far. So yeah, but let's reconvene tomorrow unless something breaks. And like and subscribe on the way out. There's 1,700 of you guys watching on all platforms, which I love. But yeah, like and subscribe on the way out, and we'll see you guys on the next one. Bye, guys.